Photo Academy, PanasonicLivingHD.com webinar on wildlife and pet photography. Thanks for joining us. We got a lot of submissions this time. A lot of people, either it's their favorite subject or they just had a little more time to submit images, but we got quite a few student images packed into the webinar tonight. And I was furiously working on this. We got a lot of late entries. One came in with 30 seconds to spare after I was going to close it. But it's one of the nice ones. For those of you who don't know me, I'm John Bentham. I'm one of the DPA instructors in New York City. You can see up on your screen there, my specialty is documentary and portraiture. Won a few awards. Some of my projects include biker rallies, burlesque dancers, Native American powwows, some travel location shoots for Audi and Mercedes, and I've written a little. My history with animals is a little bit mixed. I've ridden an elephant in Thailand, a camel in Morocco, was almost thrown by a horse in New Jersey, bitten by a dog in Hong Kong, and accosted by a tiger in Florida. That's a whole nother long story. I want to start off with a few of the DPA offerings coming up in the next couple of months. DPA is currently offering free Photoshop and Nik workshops, 24 cities across the country. And the first 10 students to sign up get a free Nik workshop. If you're not familiar with Nik, it's this great new software that we've added to the curriculum, and I'm going to show you some samples of the Nik sort of before and after shots later. It's pretty great stuff. A lot of photographers are embracing it. We're also introduced, we just introduced a couple months ago, composition in the field classes. These are 3-hour classes, all shooting. Got a lot of requests for it. The advanced classes, there's a number of hours in classrooms, some lectures, some Q&A, and then we go out in the field. This is just all in the field shooting, obviously a DPA instructor on site. And they do, in New York, we do, the woman has been doing most of these for us, Judith Farber, and she has done Grand Central Station, I think New York Public Library, and Central Park, that sort of, those are the kind of locations that we're at. Obviously, across the country, there'll be quite a range of different locations. A couple other upcoming workshops. Brookside Gardens location shoot in Maryland with Washington DC DPA instructor Nikhil Ball. That's Saturday, May 8th, 10:30 to 6:30. And if you notice down the bottom, we've also added Lens Baby to the curriculum. So there's loaners. You don't have to use one, but there'll be loaners there if you want to use them. That applies also to the composition and field classes. Special advanced class, join Angelique Wilkerson. Angelique is a DPA instructor in Dallas. She's doing a location shoot at the Dallas Botanical Gardens. This is Saturday, May 8th. And the same, Lens Baby available. Another special class, Brian Laughlin, Houston DPA instructor, is doing an interesting location shoot at the Shrimp Boat Harbor down in Texas. This was kind of interesting to me. I've been down at that area, and it's quite interesting. It's sort of, you don't really think of Texas being on the coast. It's sort of, but it's a huge, with the exception of, I guess, Forrest Gump, everybody is familiar with that. There's a huge fishing industry on there. So that's it for our announcements. Moving into the webinar, as I said, Digital Photo Academy, PanasonicLivingHD.com. Our starting shot, and this was the promotional shot for the webinar, great shot by Michael Steinberg. Michael teaches DPA classes in Cleveland. Some kind of lizard gecko. I forgot to ask him what it was, but obviously the color is just incredibly punchy. Whenever you're shooting animals, it depends on the animal, obviously, but whenever you can capture color, you know, shooting a bird that's got like a brightly colored breast, or you know, some kind of lizards or something like that, anything with a little bit of punch of color is going to really make an animal jump off. Even in this case, it's got a corresponding background color, but it just because he's thrown the background out of focus, we've got enough separation there. Also, all these lines everybody's familiar with now. We've been talking about this in a number of the workshops. Leading lines. This stick here brings your eye in. This stick, these reeds Franz here, bring your eye in. So this is a very nicely framed shot. Pretty great in terms of contrast and light and color and everything. So that was our opener. So welcome to wildlife and pet photography. This is one of my shots. This is on a little island called Fisher's Island, a very small island off the coast of Connecticut. It's actually in New York State. And this was just, I was walking along on the beach, and this dog was just walking around and following me. And the most interesting thing on the beach was the shadow of the dog. We're going to move into, start with a section on long focal lengths, telephoto lenses. It's very important when you're shooting wildlife photography. Not as much if you're shooting your pet, because your pet's obviously familiar with you, and you can get a lot closer without spooking your pet. A lot of wildlife you can't photograph without a very long lens. Now, there's a number of things come into play when we're talking about long lenses. This is the little Panasonic GF1. It's one of the new Panasonic cameras. This is one of the kits that comes with it, a 20mm lens. There's no zoom on this. It's a standard prime, very sharp, very fast lens. But this will not get you any animal shots, any wildlife shots. So right away, if you're looking to get wildlife shots, and we're talking animals that you need to get close to and they'll be spooked, and that can be anything from deer to wolves to, pretty much most wildlife. They hear you, they're gone. So a lot of photographers use blinds in the same way that hunters do. And you have to get as close as you can without spooking the animals, so the longer the lens, the better. Now, the Panasonic cameras are what we call a 2x X factor, meaning this standard lens that comes says 20mm on it, but there's a 2x factor, so 2 times 20 is a 40mm. So this is a micro Four Thirds system. Some of the other manufacturers, Olympus has the same system, 4/3 system. Canon is an X factor of 1.6. Nikon's an X factor of 1.5. So unless you have a full frame sensor camera, and you can pretty much determine that if you didn't pay $3,000 for your camera, it's a small sensor camera. But this, where this comes into play is on long lenses. Now you lose with an X factor of 2, you lose on the wide end. For instance, if you put a 10mm lens on and you want to get a very wide shot, times 2 equals a 20. It's still wide, but not really extreme wide. But where you gain is on the other end, on the telephoto lens. So the lens we're looking at right here is a 14 to 140. It's a nice Panasonic zoom. Again, you apply the X factor. 14 times 2, 28, and 140 times 2, 280. So 280, much longer. 280 is a very nice lens for using if you're shooting at the zoo, if you're shooting animals like horses at a farm, that sort of thing. You can get close to them. Obviously, if it's not from very, very far away, like great distances, but the longer the lens, the closer and the more you can frame an animal. So I took one of my workshops to the zoo last summer, and one of the people didn't have a very long lens, and he was just getting scenes with a little animal way off in the distance there, and we couldn't, we were looking at his photos later, we couldn't even tell what kind of animal it was in some cases. Not long enough lens. This is the Panasonic G1. I believe this month they've just come out with the G2, an upgrade on that. But this lens, 45 to 200. Again, you apply the X factor. On the top end of that equals a 400mm. That's very long. This is a nice lens for shooting wildlife. You get, with a 400mm, you can actually get a great distance. You can cover a great distance with that focal length and get in on shots that ordinarily you couldn't get close enough without spooking the animal. So a number of you, if you bought a kit lens that came with your camera, for instance, say you bought it came with a camera that was like an 18 to 55mm lens, you apply the X factor, that's not a very long lens. So if you're looking at, I'm going to show you some of the examples here, and you'll be surprised at the great focal lengths we got going on. This is a nice shot from a DPA student, Julia Spring. She's a student of Russ Burton. Russ teaches workshops in Denver. This is not a exceptionally long lens. I've noted down here at the bottom a 220mm. The horses, it helps the horses are running towards her.